Have you ever felt like you were in love with the wrong person? Someone who made your heart race, made you smile in ways you never thought possible, but the timing was all wrong? What if this person was already promised to someone else? You might have been happy, but deep down, you knew you were living in a lie. This is the story of two people who found each other at the worst possible time. One was engaged to someone else. The other felt the spark of true love. But love doesn't always follow the rules, does it? What happens when your heart tells you one thing, but your mind says something else? Let me tell you a story about love, confusion, and the impossible choices that follow. My name is Kate, and I have always believed that true love comes once in a lifetime. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other. The kind of town where gossip was like the air we breathed. Everyone had their own stories, and some were better left untold. For me, life was simple. It was quiet, peaceful, until the day I met him. His name was Tom. At first, I didn't even notice him. He was just another guy in the crowd at my best friend's wedding. But when our eyes met across the room, something changed. I could feel it. My heart raced, and my breath caught in my chest. Tom was tall with dark hair and a crooked smile that made him look like he had just stepped out of a movie. He had this kind of energy that you couldn't ignore. We talked for hours that night. His voice was soothing. His words seemed to hang in the air, and I didn't want to stop listening. I felt like I had known him forever. We laughed about the most ridiculous things. And in that moment, I forgot about everything else. I forgot about my life, my problems, my fiancé. Yes, I was engaged. And yes, I had promised myself that I would marry John, the man I'd been with for 3 years. He was dependable, kind, and solid in every way. But standing there with Tom, I felt like I was walking away from something that I didn't quite understand yet. The next few days felt different. My thoughts were consumed by Tom, and I couldn't stop thinking about the way he made me feel. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smile, his eyes, and I couldn't ignore the pull. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. John, my fiancé, noticed that something was off. I had tried to shake off the feeling, tried to go back to my normal life, but it wasn't the same. He looked at me and asked if something was wrong. At first, I told him it was nothing, but how could I lie to him when I felt like I was drifting away? One evening, I decided to call Tom. I needed to hear his voice again. I needed to know that I wasn't imagining everything. He picked up quickly, and we talked about nothing for what felt like hours. We talked about our childhoods, our dreams, our future. With him, the world seemed brighter. The reality of my engagement began to feel distant. But there was a catch. Tom wasn't available in the way I wanted him to be. He was already in a relationship, engaged to a woman named Sarah. Sarah was beautiful, kind, and everything you could want in a partner. She was the kind of person who loved him in the way I always wanted to be loved. They had been together for years, and the idea of breaking them apart seemed impossible. I woke up one morning with a heavy heart, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I had promised myself that I would be with John, that I would marry him and build a life together. I owed him that, right? But the truth was, my heart wasn't in it anymore. It belonged to someone else, someone I couldn't have. And that hurt more than anything else. Every time I looked at John, I felt like I was lying. He trusted me. He had always trusted me, and I was betraying that trust in the worst way. I couldn't stop thinking about Tom. It was like a constant ache in my chest, a reminder of the connection we shared, and how everything had changed so suddenly. John noticed it too. I wasn't myself. I was distant. I couldn't pretend that things were okay. How could I? How could I look him in the eyes and act like nothing had changed when everything had? I wanted to reach out, to tell him what was really happening. But I couldn't. I didn't know how to explain to him that my heart was with someone else, that I had already made my choice, even though I hadn't yet found the courage to admit it. One evening, we sat together on the couch, the silence between us stretching for what felt like hours. Finally, John spoke, his voice soft but full of concern. "Kate, what's going on? You're not yourself. Please talk to me. If something is wrong, I need to know." His words cut deep. I could feel the love in his voice, the desperation for me to be honest with him. I could see how much he cared, how much he wanted to fix whatever was broken. But what could I say? I couldn't tell him that I had fallen in love with someone else. How could I shatter everything? How could I break his heart when I had already broken mine? I took a deep breath and said the hardest thing I had ever said. "John, I think I've fallen out of love with you." He looked at me, stunned. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but there was also a quiet understanding, like he already knew. He didn't ask me why. He didn't demand an explanation. Instead, he nodded slowly, his voice barely a whisper. "I knew something was wrong. I just wanted you to be honest with me." And with that, the guilt that had been eating away at me finally came crashing down. I had done this. I had hurt the person who loved me most, and there was no way to fix it now. I called Tom that night, my hands trembling as I dialed his number. My heart was beating so fast, I thought I might faint. When he picked up, his voice was warm, but I could hear the uncertainty in it. "Kate, what's wrong?" "I need to see you," I said. "I can't keep doing this. I need to know if you feel the same way." We met at the park, the same park where we had first talked. I felt like everything was coming to a head. I needed to know if he could be with me. Tom was silent for a moment, and then he spoke. "Kate, I've been thinking about you nonstop, but I can't hurt Sarah. She deserves better than this." I swallowed hard. The words stung, but I understood. He was torn between two lives, just like I was. He was engaged to Sarah, and yet he couldn't let go of me either. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. You love her, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And I love John. But why does it feel like we're meant to be together? I don't know, he admitted. But I can't make a decision like this right now. It's not fair to anyone. I walked away from that conversation, feeling more lost than ever. The weight of my decision was too much to carry. Should I stay with John and pretend like nothing happened? Should I fight for Tom and risk destroying everything in my life? Days passed, and I tried to go back to my old routine, but I couldn't stop thinking about Tom. It was like a shadow that followed me everywhere I went. And it wasn't just the way he made me feel. It was the fact that I knew, deep down, that the timing was all wrong. One night, I called John. He answered quickly, and I could hear the relief in his voice when he heard my voice. "I'm sorry, John," I said, tears welling up in my eyes. "I don't think I can do this anymore. I can't marry you. Not when I know I'm in love with someone else." There was a long pause, and then John said something that broke me. "I already knew. I could see it in your eyes. I just wanted you to be honest with me. I didn't want you to stay with me out of guilt." That was the last conversation we had before everything changed. It took a long time to heal from that experience. I had lost both Tom and John, two people who meant everything to me. But in the end, I realized that the wrong person at the right time isn't something you can control. Timing is everything, and sometimes life teaches you painful lessons. I moved away to a new town, hoping to start fresh. I focused on myself for the first time in years. I learned that love isn't always easy, and sometimes the right person comes into your life when it's too late. Love is complicated. It's messy, it's painful, and it's beautiful. But sometimes the hardest part isn't falling in love. It's knowing when to let go. Tom and I both had to make difficult decisions. And though we still think about each other sometimes, we know that the timing was never right. I still believe in love. But now, I also believe in waiting for the right time. The right person will come into your life when it's meant to be. Until then, you have to trust that everything happens for a reason. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, and love is never as simple as we think. But if you've ever been in love with the wrong person at the right time, you'll know exactly what I mean. See you next time, where we dive deeper into the stories that touch our hearts.